Please rise for the reading of the Holy Gospel. The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the 6th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to Bethsaida while he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on the land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. When they had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out of the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout that whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages, towns, or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Please be seated. We read our Old Testament lesson today, but I also have another part of that reading that we did not read today that I think is good to read as part of that Old Testament reading, and that is this. Then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number on it." So Noah came out together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives. All the animals and all the creatures that move along the ground and all the birds, everything that moves on land came out of the ark, one kind after another. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood. And never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease." In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Here's a question for you. Why haven't we all died yet? Why haven't we all died yet? Is it because we're so good? Well, we look at this world and we know the world isn't that good. There's, of course, the election. People taking political pot shots against each other. And of course, we had an assassination attempt the other week. Now, the leader of Israel had to run back to Israel because there were some new missile strikes that hit an athletic field, causing 10 deaths in Israel. And I heard just from a person today that there was this weird stuff at the opening ceremony of the Olympics that seemed quite immoral. You think about things like abortion. And these are things that happen in this world, and the world is a place where there is a lot of darkness. And maybe God should just destroy it all. But why doesn't he do it? Well, he doesn't do it because I'm pretty good, Pastor. Those are really bad people. When I watch the news at night, Pastor, I see how terrible the world is, but I think, I'm pretty good, though. I'm not like those weirdos. But when you look at the law of God and see what God sees, and God just told you what he sees that every inclination of our heart is evil. And we are not talking about evil that I go and throw banana peels in front of the old folks' home, or I tie ladies to railroad tracks. We're talking about everything we think of starts out about us. How does this affect us? There is something that is selfish about us, doesn't want to go God's way. When we hear God's way, we always want to go the opposite way, and that's just how it is. It would be easy to go through the Ten Commandments and for you to think to yourself afterwards, wow, maybe I should be dead, Pastor, if God really is that glorious and that perfect, and he really does hate evil. And he does. But there's also this crazy thing about God, that he's gracious. He smelled that sacrifice, and probably that sacrifice didn't smell too good, but out of his grace, he accepted the sacrifice that Noah offered. And he said, never again am I going to destroy all of humanity. Never again am I going to destroy all the animals that walk upon the earth. The only reason that we are not destroyed right now is because of God's grace. That is why. We always have to get this into our heads, or else we start to get cocky or think God is being unfair to us. When we are filled with grace every day and are treated with God's grace every day. If you want to be a happy person, realize every day is about God's grace. It's a gift from God, a gift that you don't deserve. If you want to think, I want to have everything coming my way because I deserve it, well, not only are you fooling yourself, you're just not living according to the Scriptures. You're not seeing the reality of the situation. But if you would see that everything you have is a gracious gift from God, then you'd thank and praise his name. So why haven't we died yet? Not because we don't deserve it, but because of God's grace. And I'm only going to do another point here, and that is another question. Here's the question. Does a new environment and a new start and a new existence mean a new person? The answer is our text is no. God says, I'm going to not destroy them, even though they're still like this, even though they have all these evil inclinations. The world had been changed. The world had been altered. The world had been destroyed. And now there was a new start and a new environment. You could say a fresh start. But what do we see in the book of Genesis? Pretty soon we're going to have the Tower of Babel, and the people rebel there. And then within 10 chapters, you're going to see Sodom and Gomorrah, and God is going to have to destroy them. It just does not stop. Just because your environment is new doesn't make you new. But what about what about Noah? He was pretty new, wasn't he? Because he was a good guy. The Bible calls him a righteous man. But here's the deal. If you ever sit down and go beyond your Sunday school lessons you learned when you were a kid about Noah and the ark, you will find the next part of Noah and the ark is that Noah grows a bunch of grapes, makes wine, gets naked, and then gets drunk and then naked, and then he's mad at his son because he felt his son disgraced him when he was lying on the floor naked. We don't know all the stories about it. We don't know everything that happened with it. It's kind of sketchy, but all we know is that there's drunkenness, and there is family strife, and there is anger, and there is cursing. And this is the guy who's supposed to be the hero of the faith. This is the guy who's supposed to be the new man. And yet the new man is just the old man once again, isn't he? But I want this truth to be for you right now, to hold on to this truth. Noah was a new man, but he was just like all of us. We might be a new woman or a new man because of our faith in Jesus Christ. We die and rise with Christ. But it doesn't mean that we don't have sin with us always. We are new, but yet there is an old man or an old woman always with us who still wants to go the wrong way. You would think Noah wouldn't have done all this stuff. He's so awesome. But of course, he fails. And so do we. But here's the wonderful story in the text. What does God say? God says, I'm not going to destroy the world. And I am going to, every time I see the rainbow, I'm going to remind myself that I'm not going to destroy man. And that I am not going to destroy the creatures of the earth. The sad thing about rainbows is that you don't see them all the time. I hadn't seen a rainbow for 1 year, and I saw one when I was on this trip to Iowa. I saw a beautiful rainbow. Here's the cool thing about Jesus. He's better than a rainbow. The Father's eyes are always towards Jesus. He doesn't need to be all of a sudden reminded brand new about what Jesus did for us, because Jesus is at the right hand of the Father. He's always before God. God always sees his sacrifice. And so we know God doesn't destroy us. We know what his sacrifice did and that his sins are forgiven. And God the Father loves what Jesus did. The two wills are one, and it's a will of grace, the Father and the Son's will. We don't have to wait for a rainbow to show up to say, oh, I know God's remembering that he won't destroy me. No, we know that the rainbow, Jesus, is always before God the Father, and he forgives me. And what does he do? He forgives me and makes me new again. And that's going to have to keep on happening until what? Until the day happens when ourselves, our hearts, are going to become perfect, just like the environment we will enjoy. Our hearts and our bodies and our spirits will match the perfection of the new heavens and the new earth. That will be a new start when we will truly have a new start. In the meantime, every day is a little new start, but only as long as we hold on to the forgiveness of Jesus Christ. If you say, I'm going to have a new start because I'm so good, I'm going to be strong today, that's not the Christian way. I am a new person. Why? Because God has told me I am through the work of Jesus Christ, his shed blood, his forgiveness, and his Spirit is the thing that lets me hold on to that truth, and that's what makes me new. So there's newness every day, but there always is some oldness. But we always look forward to the day. And when we say the Lord's Prayer, we say it with fervor. Thy kingdom come. Because when Jesus comes in all his glory, all this sin will be gone. And we will be completely made new. In the name of the Father,